Welcome to the Accounting Guys YouTube channel. My name is Blake, and today we'll be talking about how best to adjust accounts payable and how to make sure there are no errors in that scheduled account. Today's trainer will be Brian, one of the partners here at the Accounting Guys, and one of my favorite trainers to have here on the YouTube channel. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to the Accounting Guys YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about accounts payable and how to adjust accounts payable. And the easiest way to look and see what is sitting in accounts payable is going to be under payables and pay invoices. Here along the top, you're going to have a list of all of the vendors that have an open invoice. We're going to hit this checkbox right here to select all of them. And this will show all of the individual invoices that are sitting open in the system. And you can see the vendors over on this side that they're associated to. Another report that you might run is an aging report, and that's found under Payables, Reports, AP Aging, where we can see the detail to show us all of the lines, or switch this to summary, so we get a summary by individual vendor and how old the balances are. If we see something in here that we know is not right, we know we've already paid that, and first you want to make sure that that's actually recorded, that you've already had that payment recorded. But if it's a duplicate invoice, something that you need to get rid of. To adjust accounts payable, we usually suggest first going inside of the vendor. So we're going to go Payables, Vendor Inquiry, and we're going to look up that vendor, the fake vendor. When we open this up, this is going to bring you to a screen where you can see your invoices right here, and you can also go review when they got paid, if it was voided and whatnot. So we're going to go to our invoices, and we can see here I have a $9,000 invoice and another $9,000 invoice. And in most cases, if it's with a expense account or cost of goods sold account, you can simply just come down here to the bottom to this void invoice button, hit void, and then choose the date that you would like to void that payment, which is typically the same month that it was issued, and that will reverse that duplicate. You're going to find that there are certain things that you won't be able to void, and that will be this one, for example. This one does not. This is connected to a unit, and if that unit has already been sold, it won't let you void it because it will say the cost has already been recorded on the unit. And there's other things that if it's not a unit, it might be sublet, it might be connected through a warranty claim, through a different option where you can't just hit void. On the payments down here on the bottom, you have this void payment option so that you can void it and reissue the payment, or you can go through and void the invoice after you void the payment. For the ones over here on the invoice screen that say it's already been paid. So you'd first void the invoice, again, check your dates, that's important, and then go back, void your invoice, check your dates. And then if it is a check that you're needing to reissue, you can simply hit this reprint payment button. This is newer to Lightspeed. For those of you who haven't seen it, you have to go grant yourself access to it, but you're able to, for this reprint payment button here, if you've issued a check and let's say somebody spilled water on it or something, you have to reissue that same check and the same check number, you are able to reprint the check. It's also useful because it tells you who that check was made out to. Sometimes you'll have a vendor name here and a payee name is different, and maybe you've been changing the payee name, and so that reprint button allows you to see who that was actually made out to. So again, just a small recap. The quickest way to adjust accounts payable is going into the payable under Payables Vendor Inquiry, jumping into the invoice and hitting the void button. If it's already been paid, you have to go to the payment screen, void the payment, then void the invoice. If you're not able to void it because it's attached to something that's gone through another piece of the system, that's when we're going to go to our next step, which another way to adjust accounts payable when you see this screen and you have, I've got this 18,500 that needs to go away, is by doing a negative invoice that can then offset that invoice. So back on this, when we're seeing this fake vendor has the open balance of 18,000 and we want to adjust it to clear that out and we can't just void the invoice, that's when we're going to make a negative invoice. And let's go through that process. On this invoice, so here we have the date for 5/9/2023. This is the invoice date. When I double click on this line, it will actually tell us the date that the journal entry posted, and this is more the date that you're probably wanting to reverse this entry. So this is where you might need to find out a little bit more, and feel free to reach out to us. We can help you know what date to reverse this entry on. But just keep in mind this date is the invoice date when you're creating an invoice. So just as a quick reminder, we'll show you that here inside of making an invoice. This invoice date is not when it actually posts to the GL, it's this receiving date, and you can see that when you double click on the line in order to know what date to reverse your item. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment. So we're going to go up to Payables and Vendor Invoice, look up Fake Vendor. You can put in your invoice numbers and whatnot, do a dollar amount. So we're going to do negative 18,000. And the hard thing to know what to do here is deciding what account do I need to post this to. In most cases, you're just going to see where the original invoice was posted to, because it'll be hitting an expense account, and the second invoice that was created hit that same account, so it's been doubled up. So you'll find that same expense account in order to adjust it. I'm going to go ahead and just choose a different account. If it's from a prior year, we typically use an account in the 8s or the 9s in order to make this adjustment. But one thing also to point out in this invoice screen, in the top right section, you can see what the current balance is, so you don't have to be flipping back and forth between the two to make sure that you're adjusting. And you can also do some different discount options as well when you're setting up an invoice. But here, this is an example. We're going to decrease this by 18,000 and give it a good description, whether you say this was a duplicate, or you might say, write this off per this specific employee, or we found this is an accounting error, we're not sure what happened. Give it a good description so we know why you're making an adjustment. And then once you hit save, we're going to go back to our pay invoice screen. We're going to hit this refresh button so it will add that new invoice in. We can see, and we'll go just to the fake vendor here. We can see we have these two invoices, and we have this negative. So what you do to finish the process is you check those off, so that way our total payment amount is 0. We're going to hit this Pay All Select button, and the bank account you choose, it doesn't really matter because the payment amount is 0, and the date doesn't necessarily matter, but we typically put it inside of the same month that we're making our adjustment, and then we hit Pay, and that will apply those items together. So if it's an amount on your report that it's positive, you'll need to do that negative invoice. If it's a negative, do that positive invoice. And the tricky part is just determining, where do I make my offset? What is that account I need to adjust it against? Feel free to reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to assist you in finding out where the adjustment needs to go. And that's how you adjust accounts payable. Okay, so now we know how to adjust accounts payable, but let's learn how to set up a vendor from the first place. So if you're looking at this list and you're like, no, I know I owe more people money than this, and we don't have the invoices in the system, then we'll want to make sure we get those in. And so to set up a new vendor, you go under Payables and then Vendors, and then we'll hit New, and you give it a name. You can put the address information, the contact information in order for you to be able to have that for the future. One more reminder, at the bottom there's a 1099 checkbox here if you know that we need to be issuing them a 1099. And there's more fields in here. We'll go more into depth, but this is where you set up your vendor, and then you can then start creating those invoices through this vendor invoice to make those adjustments and make those payments. A common question that we have from dealers is, what if I didn't pay for the entire invoice? How do I make a partial payment? And that's very simple. So when you're on your pay invoice screen, we'll go ahead and click on the vendor, and down here you'll click on the invoice you're going to be paying. And so we'll be paying this one, and we're making a curtailment payment maybe. And so on this to pay column, this is where you say, I'm going to make a $2,500 payment, and it'll partially pay for that invoice. You can go back inside of the vendor afterwards, and you can see all of the individual payments that were made to that invoice until it is completely paid off. So let's go ahead and recap. So the way that you adjust accounts payable is by making a vendor invoice. There's no other way to adjust that account with that doesn't cause a different error in the system. You can't make a journal entry to it. And so if the balance is wrong, you'll need to do either a positive or a negative invoice and choose the account to have it offset. And after you've created that invoice, then you go back into your pay invoice screen, you choose the positive and the negative, and you pay all selected to apply them together. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this helps with understanding how to adjust accounts payable. Let us know if you have any other ideas for training videos. Talk to you soon.